Welcome back to our Children's Church Story Time. I missed you guys. We had a little break until Minister Wilson brought the story of King Solomon last week. Now, we're going to talk about someone that we heard often. Something about lions and someone named Daniel. All right, let's get into it. Daniel and the lions. God's people were far from home in a kingdom called Babylon. But God hadn't forgot about them. He hadn't left them. And even though the people of Babylon didn't know God, they knew there was something different about God's people. In fact, King Darius, who was the king over Babylon, had noticed something very special in God's tribe, or someone, we should say. His name was Daniel. Daniel knew God and he loved him. God had made Daniel very clever and very wise. The king saw this and wanted to put Daniel in charge of the whole kingdom. It was a very important job. Daniel was good at his work, and the king liked him. This made some of the king's men very jealous. How can we get rid of Daniel? They wondered. How can we get him in trouble with the king? It wasn't easy, because Daniel was a good man who worked hard. He was faithful in all things, and he gave thanks to God 3 times every day. But the men began to plot. When the men saw that Daniel prayed to God 3 times a day, they had an idea. They would trick the king and get rid of Daniel forever. The men went straight to King Darius. We need a new law, they told him. Because you are such a wise and wonderful king, everyone must pray to you and to no one else. If anyone disobeys, you must throw them into the lion's den. The king liked this law. He didn't know they were tricking him, though. So he said yes. It wasn't long before Daniel heard about the new law, but it didn't stop him. He trusted God, so he kept praying to him. When the king's men saw Daniel asking God for help, they rushed off to tell the king. Daniel's praying to his God, they said. You must throw him to the lions, because he's breaking your new law. King Darius realized he had been tricked, and his heart was sad. He liked Daniel and didn't want him to be hurt, but there was nothing he can do. Even he couldn't change the law. The king's men took Daniel and dropped him to the den full of hungry lions. I hope that your God, who you love, will rescue you, said the king. So Daniel was left alone in the lions, and the king went home. But the king was so worried about his friend that he didn't sleep at all. The minute the sun came up, he rushed to the lion's den. Daniel, he shouted, has your God rescued you from the lions? The king heard a voice. God has kept me safe, shouted Daniel. He sent an angel to keep the lion's mouth shut all night. The king was overjoyed. Quickly, get Daniel out of the lion's den, he ordered. After a whole night surrendered by fierce and rather hungry lions, there wasn't a single scratch on Daniel. Daniel had trusted God, and God kept him safe. As for the men who had tricked the king, well, they were in big trouble. Because of what God had done, King Darius made a new law. And the law states, everyone in my kingdom must pray only to Daniel's God. He is the true living God who lives forever. His kingdom will last forever. He is a rescuing God. He looks after his people, and he saved Daniel from the lions. You gotta love these stories. Stories that show God's grace. Imagine, God protected Daniel in a den full of hungry animals, hungry lions, hunters. We like to call him the king of the jungle. And he kept Daniel safe. And on top of that, the people that came against Daniel were dealt with. What does that tell you? God will always protect you, no matter how bad the circumstance is. No matter what's going on, God will protect you. And those people who talk bad about you and try to bring you down, leave them to God. He will handle your battles. See you next time.